One time for the punks and the losers. Oh, that's you, you bunch of crying, whining Sooners. And while OU fans seemingly root for Texas from their living rooms and lawn chairs this weekend, we, on the other hand, have the Big 12 title to talk about. And Texas is already getting all the love, all the admiration in the world. And there's already talk about if they can creep into the Final Four. I like it.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. You know we're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. Today, partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Tickets are important right now, so make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use my code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you do that today. So, on tap today, you are already hearing about all the love for Texas, which is fine, right? It's expected. Everybody's been hoping and waiting on the day that they could claim that Texas is back. This seems to be that train that everyone's riding, and you look at the betting lines, that seems to indicate that as well. It originally opened it up as 10.5 Texas favorite. It has already moved to 14.5 in just a couple days. That means the country's money is speaking loudly. But you're going to hear all week from several outlets about how great Texas is and how this is just destiny and it's fate. And if they win the Big 12 title game, then they should be looking for a couple other games that will potentially help them get in to the Final Four. And all that very well is true if they do, in fact, win. And you've heard it 1,000 times. It's all about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. If that's the case, we're about to find out. Guys, let's go over some of the Texas Longhorns that have appeared on multiple, whether it be shows or websites, On3, 247, the number one college football show. All out there is all of this NFL talent. And Texas did go a considerable number of years without really having a lot of NFL talent. Last year, they had a few guys that went that are doing pretty good in the NFL. This year, they had a lot. And they even had a few that have been projected amongst multiple sites to be first-round picks. Now, Quinn Ewers, although he is one of those, he's already said he's coming back. But then you got to look at somebody like a Jatavion Sanders, 6'4", 245 pounds with top-tier tight end speed. Xavier Worthy. We've been hearing about how good Xavier Worthy is and how he's an NFL caliber dude for quite some time now. He's kind of proven it this season. That's fair. Adonia A.D. Mitchell. You might remember him from Georgia where he balled out, goes to Texas, does the same thing. 6'4", 246 pound. T'Vondre Sweat, who's running like a 4.7, 4.8, 40. Who is right next to Ollie Gordon, I would guess, for Big 12 Player of the Year. Ollie Gordon will get Offensive Player of the Year likely. It'll be between those two for overall Player of the Year. Maybe Dylan Gabriel might have an argument there. Then they've got 6'3", 250-pound linebacker Jaylen Ford, who was all over the top 10, top 15 statistical categories in Big 12 and national. Jaron Thompson is somebody that they're very, very fond of in the back end. Jordan Whittington has all the size and material to be an NFL wide receiver. Cornerback, Jahdee Barron. Isaiah Neyor is somebody that's thought of as another potential NFL level guy. 6'6", 321-pound right tackle, Christian Jones. 6'4", 250-pound defensive end, Barryn Sorrell, 6'5", 310. Alfred Collins, man in the middle. Cornerback, Ryan Watts. The running back room alongside Brooks, with the complement of C.J. Baxter and Keilan Robinson and Savion Red, those guys look like they might have a couple more NFL-level fellas mixed in there. Well, let's get all the good out of the way. They're number one in the Big 12 overall defense. They're number one in the Big 12 in scoring defense. Number one in rushing defense. Number one in sacks. Number 4 overall defense in the United States of America. Number 1 red zone defense in America. Number 1 third down defense in America. 5-star after 5-star with all the 40 acres and the dollar bills, y'all, we will never have in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So that's a lot of the good. And we're going to leave it at that. So we have a week to talk about why this could set us up for a potential shocking of the world type of W. One of the biggest reasons is Mike Gundy doesn't have a Texas problem. We've had several conversations about how his limiting nature is kind of what's indicative of the Bedlam record, right? His inability to be ultra aggressive in some of the bigger games has always kind of been something that's gone against Gundy. But you saw the exact opposite of that on the other sideline this past weekend with BYU. Kalani Sitake did a lot of bold stuff. He made a lot of crazy calls that made you instantaneously say, oh, they're really, really, really going for broke. They're trying everything upon everything to get to a bowl game. And then in the second half, they just tried to secure the lead. They took their foot off the gas, and they gave us all the opportunities in the world to come back. So this is an opportunity now. We do have some Jimmies and Joes. We're very well aware of that. I mean, heck, we just talked about Ollie Gordon being the Offensive Player of the Year, possibly the Big 12 Player of the Year. He's got to be a shoo-in, right, to win the Doak Walker Award, which would be the first recipient. Chuba Hubbard got screwed a little bit, but nonetheless, this has to be a game where the X's and the O's play a part. Now, if you watched Texas versus Texas Tech, they looked unbeatable. They looked like a top 4, maybe college football playoff level team. But Texas Tech isn't the entire season. Now, I do know that they did go without Quinn Ewers for a little while, and that definitely, absolutely has an effect. But they barely beat Houston. They barely beat K-State. They did beat OU, but we beat OU barely. The Big 12 in general is a lot of barely wins. Texas has found ways to win games by 3 points, by 6 points, by 7 points. That's an improvement. That's good for them. They have all of this NFL pedigree and the money and the recruiting and the facilities, right, that nobody else really has in the new Big 12. But I want to know if they have the fight. Because say what you want about this Oklahoma State team, I've had several things to say about Mike Gundy this year, which we'll get to with some of the grades. But the X's and the O's for Texas against Texas Tech looked really good. There's times this season that I would say KU and Texas had the most innovative play calling. But then there's also times that they find themselves in battles. And when they do find themselves in battles, yes, they find a way to win. But isn't it ironic that OU fans are crying and whining about refs? And we've heard Texas fans cry and whine to some degree about refs this year already as well. But it's the same refs that everyone at OU and Longhorn country want to talk about that won y'all, that gave y'all the Houston game, amongst several other calls. So miss me with all that. Texas is good. We get it. We got it. But we're a different kind of good. Are we not? We have something that Texas doesn't have. And again, we don't have a Gundy versus Texas problem. What is Gundy's like 9 wins over the last dozen years? 12 years, 9 and 12. Pretty sure it's a pretty good mark. So does he have a Bedlam problem? Typically, yes. Does he sometimes have a big game, apprehensive play calling type of mentality? Yes. But does he have a Texas deficiency? No. No, he does not. And for all the Jimmies and Joes that Texas wants to pretend that we don't have, a decent number of these guys that didn't get Texas offers are coming home. There's a lot of things at play here that should have you not only in Oklahoma State country, but the Hateful Eight country, all of the new Big 12 country or the new Big 12 country that has some excitement here. Everything is leaning Texas, 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 Texas. So is this big, huge, heralded version of Texas going to show up? Or is a different version of Texas? Oh, yeah, we haven't had to experience this in quite some time. Kind of Texas going to show up. Is the first half Kalani Sitake going to creep over to the Mike Gundy play calling sheets? There's a lot of things that do, in fact, go in our favor. When you have nothing to play for, Keilan Robinson of BYU showed us in the first half that's what that looks like when you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by just going for it. And he took his foot off the gas. And then it allowed Ollie Gordon and the offense to kind of get a rhythm, which is crazy because in that weather, you'd have thought BYU would have had the ability to take the foot off the gas. But sometimes that has way worse implications than just the play calling. Sometimes that becomes a negativity that permeates in the sidelines. And you could talk about, does our coach have faith or not type of scenarios. So, yeah, we just saw it. And I think it could be a good metric for Mike Gundy to be able to use for the Texas game, right? There's a lot of things that are positive here. One of the things that isn't so super positive before we jump into the grades is tickets. Tickets are expensive, especially the tickets right now for the Big 12 title game. And I know a lot of Oklahoma State fans are, in fact, having to do some level of scrambling because there's not an exorbitant amount of us that thought we would end up in this position. Now, as you wait throughout the week, there's going to be some fans, OU, that bought tickets months ago that aren't going to be going, that will inevitably lower their prices a bit, but they're going to wait to the last minute. You can wait to the last minute without worrying about them by going to Game Time today. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying your tickets to this big event or whatever big event you're ready to go to, because it's not just about sports. Game Time is a fast and easy way to get sports, music, comedy, theater, and other events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the best part, you view the seat. So you see exactly where you're sitting at because you don't want to get screwed. With the best price guarantee, Game Time also takes the guesswork out of you buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy. All-in prices show the total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal, no hidden fees. You can buy the tickets in seconds. Again, the flash deals and sponsor deals will go for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create the account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, make sure you create that account. Redeem that code, LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Not a lot of things in life are guaranteed. The improvements we've seen at Oklahoma State this year certainly were not guaranteed. So let's kind of dive in a little bit and hand out some grades. And you know what? From the grades that I was kind of able to put together, I think this is pretty indicative of a 9-3 style ball club, right? If you're 11-1, 12-0, obviously you're going to have a lot of A's. If you're 3-6, 3-7, 6-6, 6-7, 7-6, whatever, obviously you're more predispositioned to have a lot more D's and maybe some F's, right? So let's start off with quarterback, which is going to have to likely have maybe the biggest game of his life against Texas. But I'd say Alan Bowman definitely made some improvements. I think the overall yards, right, per game that he's putting up is pretty decent, and I'd give him a C+ on the season. And as a position, I think that sits because of the carousel and what we had to fight through in the beginning. So I give them a C+ at the quarterback room. Running back room, all the way around, A-. And this includes Coach Wozniak. I mean, what a remarkable job. I think a lot of us knew Ollie Gordon was likely going to be the guy, but in the spring and the fall, he didn't necessarily separate himself. And now we've seen how good Ollie Gordon is. I think that's just another reason why we need to be more appreciative of somebody like a Jade Nixon and definitely Elijah Collins, because those are this Power 5, Big 12 level starting running backs somewhere. They just happen to be behind Ollie Gordon. So from Wozniak all the way down the roster, even including Sessi, give them an A minus for sure. O-line. Tinkered around for a bit, had to find its groove, had to get back to more of what we saw in the spring and run the ball more effectively. With all of that, I think they turned this thing around. I'm going to give them a solid B. I really think that the mix and match, we found that Dalton Cooper is legitimately a good left tackle. Jake Springfield is a good right tackle. We learned that Cole Birmingham is a natural guard. We learned that Joe Mahalski is actually better than we anticipated. The depth behind him is pretty daggone good. Jason Queso Brooks was grading out really, really well before, a little bit of a limitation. Even I'd say Taylor Materko in his time that he gets to jump in does pretty good. This is a more than serviceable offensive line. So definitely I'd say a B. Tight end, Coach McIndoe, just like Coach Dickey, looks like you shaved your job, buddy. I give the tight end position a B+. I would have loved to say A. Y'all know how high I am on Josiah Johnson, have been for a couple months. But I don't think we use them enough to give them the benefit of an A. So I'm going to go B+ tight ends. And the fullback, I anticipated a little bit more, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Braden Cassidy hasn't got a single carry. Not that is the metric here that weighing everything based upon. They missed some blocks, just like some of the tight ends did. The tight ends found a way later in the season to get those blocks down. The fullbacks still have a propensity at times to miss them. Schultz misses some, but does a really good job at sealing the edge as well. So by and large, I'd say C+ here is fair. Wide receiver. Usually Oklahoma State is a wide receiver factory. This year, I don't think is any different. We didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver, which is something that we did predict preseason. But we saw the emergence of somebody like a Leon Johnson, and Leon Johnson was further on down the depth chart because of the guys in front of him, talent-wise, like a Talon Shetron, like a Jaden Bray. Rashad Owens stepped up masterfully this year. The depth is a byproduct, I think, of the camaraderie that they have at that specific position group. So I give them a B+. Let's switch to the other side of the field, the cornerback position. I feel like they left a lot to be desired. I went D+ originally. When you look back, they did do some things, right, defensively that helped us get back in some games. So I might be okay with upgrading them to a C-. Safety position. This was the deepest position we had coming into the season. This was the position I thought we were going to be able to lean on, hold our hat on. This position was going to make our 3-3-5 a little bit better, a little bit different than everybody else's. And we do have some studs. Overall, it was hit and miss, right? And I think since we just found out that Brian Nardo against BYU in the second half of the locker room, he face-to-face challenged Kendall Daniels and said, I need you to do more. And Kendall Daniels did more than he has basically all year. It goes to show the safety room still has a little bit left in the tank that we didn't get to see, so I give them a C. Linebacker. This was a huge surprise. Linebacker didn't really start looking, I would say, pretty good until right before week 1, and that's with Justin Wright. And then without Justin Wright, I was wondering what our run defense was going to look like. And again, sometimes we get gashed. Sometimes we do major things. It's the same with the passing side of the ball as well. But they get A-. I think you got to throw Coach Joe Bob Clements in here as well. A-, linebackers all the way around. Great job. Defensive tackle. Justin Kirkland, I think may have been one of my more underwhelming guys just from an accolades perspective. But maybe I didn't take into consideration how necessary the area of operation was for his nose tackle position as opposed to the statistical category. So I'm going to say C+, because I do think Colin Clay did a lot of really good things as well. But, you do want a little bit more of a Siaka Ika. Siakika was able to dominate areas of operation and still get in on the sacks, tackles for loss department quite a bit. We're not quite there yet, but we've got some youth there. Justin Kirkland is only going to get better, I would assume. So C+ for now. Defensive end. We had some, again, hit and miss. Good times, some bad times, but more often than not, it was slightly underwhelming. I think there's some bright spots, right? I think Deshaun Brown is a big bright spot. I think the emergence of Nathan Latu is beneficial for some guys behind him. I think the youth that we have coming up at that position is good. We saw a really good amount from Xavier Ross. But at the end of the day, statistically, we do lose contain a decent amount. And I know the defensive ends aren't always pertinent in that equation, but a decent amount of times they are. So I give them a C-. Kicker. Great job, Alex Hale, right? Coming back from that hip leg injury, had to go back to the lab, refigure out his swing, kind of like golf. He ended up obviously more often than not capable to do that. I give him an A-. And the kicking game in general, right? I think Logan Ward can be factored in that equation as well. Well, obviously you would like a little bit more touchbacks, but all in all, pretty good. A+ in the kicking department. Punting department, I'd say A-. Only because they weren't utilized as much as a weapon as I think they could have been. Like Wes Paul has a big leg, and I liked how towards the end of the season we started using Hudson Clark a little bit more. They do a little bit different things, but that makes us a little bit more multifaceted at the position. Took us a while to utilize that, in my opinion. I still say AA- is pretty reasonable. Now we get to the coaches real quick. Offense coordinator, Casey Dunn, gets a D. Okay, but there's a caveat here, and that is when Mike Gundy was more involved, when Tim Rattay was allowed to be more involved, and maybe, just maybe, they had a few barbecues or three with Cale Gundy, it bumped up. So I'd say done by himself, a D. Done with all the help, C+. Defensive coordinator, Brian Nardo, expected massive things. At times, he won us games. At times, he let up massive plays, and it was pretty head-scratching when you're like, when we have Kendall Daniels and Lyric Rawls and Cam Epps style talent, why are we getting gashed like this? But we also did a really good job figuring some things out, and he helped us win some of the games at the end that got us in the position we're in right now, including BYU, right? Partially because of Trey Rucker. The other staff, we've mentioned Joe Bob, we've mentioned Coach Wozniak. We've talked about Benny Tonga, Rashidi Jones, J.W. Walsh, Coach Hammerschmidt, right? All up and down the board, Trayson Wallace. The staff around everybody, I think it's definitely an A, because you got to take into the recruiting side of things as well. And the transfers that we were able to bring in were able to kind of, bridge that gap. And then our main man, Mike Gundy, the one who I said should have been ran out on the rails for refusing to address some of the complacency and, the time in the facilities and some of the things that were going on. And he didn't, right? We had to wait until after Iowa State, after South Alabama, before we got a new view. But we did get that. So at the end of the day, the man that I thought shouldn't have given a pass because he waited too long to make enough critical changes, the man I thought lost his daggone fastball or didn't even really want to have a fastball anymore, proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong. He dove back into the facilities. He dove back into the playbook. He dove back into the relationship building side of things. He dove back into working 13, 14, 15 hours, being up into his office at 11 p.m. He dove back into all that. And for that, I think he definitely, right now, as it sits, gets at least a B. If he beats Texas, it's a solid A. The reason it's not even an A now is because, again, we did go through the rotation of madness. We did go through the changing of the offense when the season started. We did go through him backing himself into a wall and refusing to acknowledge that Casey Dunn had any issues and that the offense had any issues. And then obviously it took a while to settle on some certain areas. Other than that, yeah, he probably would get an A. But those things did happen. It did take some come to Jesus meetings with Chad Weiberg and some donors before we kind of got this new emergence, but we got it. I think he definitely gets a B because of it. You guys, we've been talking about maximization, capitalization, maybe better. Sometimes you need to capitalize. And right now you can capitalize today with FanDuel. We said hammer the over. We made it. Now, are we hammering some of the overs for this Texas game? Maybe, maybe not. But just like we were able to get this thing back into the picture, right now you can get $150 back into your picture in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. The weather's getting colder, and the NFL offers are going to try to keep you warmer. Again, $150 back. Your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, stop thinking. Get in on the action while the action is good. The app is safe, secure, super easy to use with everything from overs, unders, player props, spreads, money lines, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to kick off the NFL money-making season, your money-making season, Big 12 title money-making season. Go to FanDuel right now, the official partner of the NFL. The NFL, you know, that place that Texas has a bunch of players going to. And Oklahoma State will have a handful. But we are now stepping into a time of capitalization for not just Oklahoma State, but for the Big 12. Worst case scenario was Red River for the last Big 12 title with those two teams in it. That was worst case scenario. Second worst case scenario was one of them got in. Best case scenario was neither got in. Well, we got second to worst. Texas is in. But the Big 12 has lived up to the billing of craziness. Texas has not been divulged of any proprietary information that helps them barely squeak out these wins, but they have been. And sometimes that's a testament of a really good football team. And I'm not saying Texas isn't. I've said it on the live show. Watching the Texas versus Texas Tech game makes you think that we ain't got a shot. But then you got to take into consideration that they are human. They did have games this year where they slept up, even with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. So they are susceptible. And with all of the hype surrounding Texas right now, you know that can't be great. You know, Steve Sarkisian probably doesn't love all of the love that they're getting. So maybe, just maybe, you factor that in with Mike Gundy's ability to beat Texas. With all the Big 12 country behind us, I'm actually a fan of putting the big orange and black Big 12 logo on one side of the helmet. Like the Boise State thing or whatever. Mississippi State does it too. Put OSU on one side or Pete on one side, Big 12 logo on the other side, something. I would like to do something to have Brett Yormark's back because in Austin, they threw as much shade the Big 12's way as physically possible. They knew Brett Yormark was on hand, so they played a bunch of clips of him talking about Texas Tech winning. So let's help our main man out, Brett Yormark. So he's going to be rooting on for the Cowboys, as should the Hateful Eight. All of y'all should be Cowboys. And I've received several messages from a lot of Big 12, even UCF fans, cheering on the Cowboys. It's good. It's the Hateful Eight, the new Big 12, and the new Big 12, all cheering against the evil enemy that is Texas. At least we can all agree there. Texas is the enemy. They put everybody in this position that caused realignment to shuffle. So no matter what conference you do or don't love or like, Texas is partially to blame. So get your orange on this week, all week, and tune in because we're going to talk about the ways that we actually can pull this one off, even though it's big, bad, bougie Texas. All right, y'all. You know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thanks for tuning in. Later, taters.